Welcome to Mental Performance Unleashed with Emily Heird.
Welcome back to Mental Performance Unleashed with Emily Heird. Emily is a licensed psychotherapist and certified mental performance mastery coach who helps attorneys and legal leaders operate like intellectual athletes, performing at a high level while protecting their mental energy. I'm Leanne Lyon, and in today's episode, we're talking about sleep and high performance. For many attorneys and leaders, poor sleep isn't just about long hours. It's a performance issue that affects decision-making, focus, and recovery. Emily will break down why high performers often struggle with sleep, what's happening cognitively and physiologically, and how better sleep becomes a critical part of sustainable performance. Hello, Emily. Nice to see you.
Hi, Leanne. It's great to see you as well.
So you work with high performers every day, lawyers, executives, leaders that are under constant pressure. How common is sleep dysfunction in this population, and what does it actually look like when it shows up?
Yeah, so sleep dysfunction in this population is extremely common. But high performers, when they come to me, they don't come to me saying, I have a sleep problem. They talk about lack of focus, it's off, their decision making is slower, they're more irritable with their team. There are other things going on that they're paying more attention to. But inevitably, in that first conversation I have with them, when I ask about their sleep and the quality of it, how it's impacted, almost always sleep is part of the picture. They just haven't connected the dots yet between sleep and their performance. And it often shows up like, waking up at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, worrying about things, ruminating, waking up feeling unrefreshed, relying on caffeine, and more caffeine to sustain function. And sometimes they wonder if they have an anxiety disorder or ADHD, or they often just rationalize and justify it as being part of a busy person.
Well, we know there is a culture in high-performance professions, law especially, where functioning on 5 hours of sleep is worn more like a badge of honor than anything else. What does the research actually tell us about what's happening to cognitive performance at that level of sleep deprivation?
Yeah, so certainly in law and in some other professions that I work with, there's kind of that unspoken equation of hours awake equals commitment. Working late into the evening, sacrificing sleep is a signal that you are committed to doing your work. And sleep can almost feel irresponsible when you're billing, when you have a trial coming up, when your clients need you. So again, they don't just tolerate it, they rationalize it as part of the job. But what's happening is like your body never acclimates and adjusts to that sleep deprivation. It just kind of stops sending the signal as loudly. So people forget what feeling rested feels like. And there's a lot of sleep research out there that shows, 17 and 19 hours with sleep. So this is the average attorney who's pulled an all-nighter and is working into the second day. That produces cognitive impairment equivalent to a 0.05 blood alcohol level. So decision-making, working memory, emotional regulation are all measurably degraded. And chronically sleep-deprived people lose the ability to kind of accurately assess their own level of impairment or how much it's impacting them. They say they feel fine, they're presenting as though they feel fine, but they're not fine. So it's all related to cognitive performance, the very things that attorneys need and executives need to perform their best at work are impacted by lack of sleep over a consistent period of time. Obviously, there are times when work calls for working late into the evening or preparing for trial or getting a deal over the line. But if this is your norm and you are chronically sleep deprived, it's going to impact all those things that I mentioned in terms of cognitive performance. It impacts mood and emotional regulation. Those erode. And then you have a higher level of vulnerability to mental health issues such as anxiety and depression because there is a strong bidirectional relationship between sleep and these mental health challenges.
So I think most people by now have read the basic sleep tips, for better sleep. No screens before bed and keep a consistent schedule. But what if people have tried that and it doesn't seem to make an impact? What's happening kind of beneath the surface that the sleep hygiene tips don't fix?
Yeah, so those tips aren't wrong. They're just kind of downstream of what I see as the real problem, the root problems. So yeah, limiting screens, getting on a consistent sleep wake time, a dark room, all of those are valid. If you Google sleep tips, you're going to come up with millions of results because we're a chronically sleep deprived society. But if your nervous system is still running on a stress response, no amount of blackout curtains is going to fix that. A new mattress isn't going to fix it. You cannot kind of sleep hygiene your way out of a dysregulated nervous system. So we have to start treating sleep as not as the problem, but as a signal. And the question is like, what is my system trying to tell me about the load that it's carrying and the lack of recovery?
So you just mentioned, the nervous system as the foundation of performance. How does chronic stress, the kind that accumulates in high stakes professions, actually interfere with the brain's ability to enter and sustain quality sleep?
Yeah, so chronic stress actively interferes with the exact physiological conditions that we need to enter into a sleep state. Mostly that your nervous system has gone from that fight or flight mode to the rest and digest mode, number one. And then number two, it really needs like a lack of effort. It needs us to slow down and to stop doing, which is challenging for high performers. So it's not just that you're like tired and wired, it's that, your nervous system is preventing you from getting the thing that you need the most. And this is all related to our cortisol rhythm. We have naturally higher levels of cortisol in the morning when you wake up, and then it's supposed to lower down at night to help you downshift. But when you're under chronic stress, that rhythm gets dysregulated, it gets disrupted, and chronic stress or cortisol, stays elevated in the evening. So it's kind of getting the wrong signal at the wrong time. And when I look at the schedules of my clients and high performers, they tend to have a chaotic schedule almost by definition. Late nights, early mornings, all-nighters before trial, travel, irregular meals, lack of exercise. So all these things, the circadian rhythm it doesn't get established. It's not where it needs to be so that you have a predictable bedtime and a predictable wake-up time. And the circadian rhythm depends on consistency. So if it doesn't have a consistent pattern because of the stress and the demands of work, then it is challenging for you to naturally be able to fall asleep more naturally. My clients often also have the challenge of when they do lay down and go to sleep, and there is no external stimulation or noise, and the brain has space, that's when it wants to think about cases, the unfinished task list, the conversation that they need to have tomorrow, the fear that you're missing something. So all those worries and all those fears start to pop in, which then makes it more challenging to sleep. So when I work on sleep issues with clients, yes, we tackle the good sleep hygiene tips, but we also focus more on the root issue, which is the cortisol and the chronic stress.
So I'm curious, what's the difference between someone who sleeps 8 hours but wakes up unrefreshed versus someone who gets 6 hours and wakes up feeling sharp and ready to go? Is it about quantity, quality, or something else entirely?
Yeah, so the research shows that quality is more important than quantity. So if someone gets 8 hours of sleep, but it's been really disrupted, or they haven't gotten into that deeper stage of sleep, the REM stages, then they are going to wake up feeling less refreshed. Whereas if you sleep deeply and well for 6 hours, then your body might have received all of the recharge and recovery time it needs to wake up ready to go the next day. So certain things that can interfere in addition to the other things that I've mentioned, alcohol, late night eating, some medications. These are going to suppress REM sleep, even if the total number of hours feels fine. You're not going to get that quality sleep. And so if you are consistently getting what you think is enough sleep, but you're not waking up feeling refreshed, then this is a signal worth paying attention to, and you might want to get some data on like your heart rate variability, your resting heart rate, or using a sleep tracker to start looking at patterns.
Excellent points. In your work with clients, what is the most common hidden drivers of poor sleep that people don't necessarily connect to their sleep problems?
Yeah, so there are a number of them that I see on a pretty consistent basis. Number one is just like the state of the world in general right now. We're living in a highly volatile, unpredictable, chaotic time. And a lot of the fears and worries about what is going to happen, what could happen, definitely keep people awake at night. Other contributors are like unfinished emotional loops, like conflicts that aren't resolved in your life, things that are left unsaid, ongoing relational tensions, whether that's in the workplace or your personal relationships. Perfectionism is a large hidden driver of poor sleep. This is the brain, it like stays running, keeping the loops open, trying to find the flaws or the risks or worrying about what other people are thinking about you. A sense of chronic urgency. So lawyers especially tend to operate on like this drive that everything is a 5-alarm fire and everything is urgent. But when everything is always urgent, the nervous system never gets either the all clear signal or it doesn't downshift into the rest and digest state. So I also help my clients learn how to operate in a state of what I call like relaxed intensity. And then there's a lack of transition, going from full work mode to bed immediately with no decompression buffer, or even working in your bed. If you are on your laptop, if you're on your phone, responding to emails, whether that's first thing in the morning or late into the evening, your brain gets really confused about what am I supposed to do in this environment? Am I supposed to be working, thinking about problems, or am I supposed to be sleeping? And then the last one is really the identity piece, that identity fusion with being productive. I always have to be productive. And so when people have an achievement-oriented identity, rest can feel like a failure, which creates low-grade anxiety around not working. So those are some common hidden contributors that I see.
I know you framed recovery as a performance protocol, not just rest. How does sleep fit into that larger system? And what does treating sleep like a cognitive athlete actually look like in practice?
Yeah, so elite athletes do not treat recovery as the absence of training. It is training. So for athletes, that physical adaptation of their muscles, the growth of muscles, the healing of muscles and tendons happens during recovery, not during the workout. And cognitive performance works the same way. So the consolidation of information and memories, the repair, the cleaning out of the toxins of the brain, emotional regulation, all of that happens during sleep. So when you skip it on a regular basis, you are not being productive. You are actually withdrawing and taking out withdrawals from your sleep bank and not making deposits into it. So you're running at a sleep deficit. So protocols, what this looks like in practice, number one is like treating your sleep window as a non-negotiable appointment. This was one of the main things that I changed after I hit my wall with burnout and I was recovering from burnout, was to stop staying up late, kind of that sleep procrastination, watching true crime on Netflix on my phone in bed, and getting to sleep. So treating it like it's a non-negotiable appointment. It is part of your performance. Then building in that wind down protocol. There's a reason why we have a bedtime routine for kids. It helps their body know the signals that it's time to start to wind down and to be able to transition to sleep easier we are no different as adults. So building in that wind down time, 30 to 60 minutes before you go to bed. Stay off your phone. Now, I will put a little asterisk besides this because sometimes I recommend to my clients that they do a non-sleep deep rest protocol or a sort of guided mindfulness exercise to help transition their nervous system into the rest or digest state. But when I say stay off your phone, I mean no news, no scrolling, no information that is going to keep your brain alert and active. We think we're getting recovery when we're doing that, but we're not. And then sometimes I ask my clients, or they want to track sleep data, not for judgment, not to optimize it to the, nth degree, but just to kind of get some baseline figures to work with and see what's actually happening as we start to make adjustments. And then, again, integrating rest and recovery throughout your day so you're helping manage the cortisol levels throughout the day.
Excellent. Excellent ideas. So if somebody is listening to this and they recognize themselves, they're exhausted, they can't shut their brain off at night, they're performing below where they know they're capable, what is the first thing that you'd tell them to look at?
Well, first is to stop kind of treating sleep as the enemy. Oftentimes in these environments, again, it's easy to justify sacrificing sleep in the name of getting work done, and I have to get it done, and I must get it done. And so sleep really isn't your enemy. It's actually going to be one of your best tools for improved performance. So the first thing is making that mindset shift. And start to get curious about it. Your sleep is giving you information. What do you notice? Is it that you can't shut your brain off at night? Are you worrying about not being able to fall asleep? Kind of the worry about sleep actually interferes with our ability to sleep. Are you waking up at 2 a.m., having fears, ruminating, rehearsing tomorrow? These are all signals. So instead of just accepting that you don't sleep well, start to get curious and see what you notice about what is happening with your sleep patterns. And then if I would recommend one thing to start putting into practice, it would be to start building a bedtime transition and wind down. So looking at what happens between the end of the workday and when you go to bed, how are you spending that time? And then deliberately choosing to create some sort of transition routine for yourself, 30 to 60 minutes before you go to bed, genuine decompression, and give yourself permission to do that as part of your performance, your well-being, and your kind of foundation for sustainable success.
Well, that is it for today's episode of Mental Performance Unleashed with Emily Heird. To learn more about how Emily helps lawyers and legal leaders strengthen their mental performance, go to vantageviewcoaching.com. Take the free mental performance assessment. It takes about 10 minutes. And then book a call with Emily to walk through what it reveals about your performance and receive a personalized protocol to start implementing immediately. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a colleague who could benefit from staying sharp under pressure. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Leanne.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.